You right-wingers want to ban books. This is always a hoot to me. This is from the party that had Tipper Gore in front of Congress banning things, telling us we need warning labels on video games. The same people telling us that we needed warnings on video games because it was poisoning the minds of our children are perfectly okay with books that promote pornography in the classroom. Why are books talking about LGBT lifestyle, how to use a marital aid, where to insert it, what positions are, and these are grade school. It's pornography. If I walk up to a child in the street and have that discussion with a child in the street, they'd lock me up. They should. But if your teacher does it in a classroom setting, then it's okay. That's wrong. And so groups like Moms for Liberty have been going to school board meetings and other conservative groups, addressing school boards, running for the school board, changing the curriculum. In Florida, Governor DeSantis recently passed a law. It was written by the Florida legislature, but they're blaming DeSantis, saying, no, we're not going to teach these books in the classroom. That a classroom should be about mathematics, reading, writing, science, history, not sexual positions or what a person does in the bedroom. All of a sudden, the same people that tell us that you want to be what goes on in your bedroom to be private, that government has no business, all of a sudden want to tell what they're doing in the bedroom to kids. That's evil. That's the spread of pornography. That's poisoning a child's mind. It's the breakdown of the innocence of children. We know this to be true because we pass laws preventing adults from doing that to children in the street. Right? Don't do that. Don't talk to kids about this. Don't expose yourself in public. Famously, the Supreme Court decision, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. And the liberals have now taken parents' rights to prevent pornography in a classroom setting, which is what they're doing, and equated it with banning books like To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird was a banned book, but you could still read it. There was nobody to prevent anyone from buying To Kill a Mockingbird or taking it out from a library. They just felt it was too adult content for children to consume. They may have been in error in that. That's up for you to decide as a parent. It's still taught in the college setting. So are these other books. They could be taught in a college setting, just not to children. And I would argue that To Kill a Mockingbird really isn't content for a small child to consume. I want them reading about American history. I want them reading about math. How to add 2 plus 2 without doing some kind of crazy Abbott and Costello routine on the chalkboard. The new math they talk about. I want them to be able to think, to communicate, to concisely put down their ideas in a page format, in a written format. That's why your teacher used to say, I want you to write a theme for 500 words. What I Want for Christmas, most famously, from that movie Christmas Story. Just teach you how to communicate. That's probably the most essential thing. How to read and write and communicate concisely and present your thoughts in a scientific manner. They don't do that anymore. They instead just tell kids, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do with the girl next door. That's not banning a book. It's not the same thing. A book about a sexual position for LGBT people, which of course will only appeal or cater to a very small percentage of the population. Teaching it broadly to a child is not the same as To Kill a Mockingbird. It's different. To Kill a Mockingbird dealt with the issues of racism the establishment, prejudices, murder. It has nothing to do with anything that really needs to be taught to a grade school kid. That's why I said, I'm not saying ban the book. I'm saying it's not relevant to a child. And it's certainly not nearly the same thing as a book about pornographic content. There are films and things that we have seen now because of COVID, of what goes on in classrooms. And it's why it's suddenly become an issue. It's not because people are more right-wing than ever before. It's that they did not know. I talked about this for years. For those of you who have followed this show from our embryonic, low-quality radio show when we first started till now, have always known that I have been a proponent of revamping our education system from the get-go. I've said this is where it all begins. Most people didn't listen to me. I would get the emails, I would get the letters. Nothing wrong with teachers. Teachers are wonderful. Teachers are everything. Teachers, by and large, in a public school system are members of the teachers union, and they are perpetrating evil in your child's mind. I have said this from the get-go. Now you suddenly know what I'm talking about because I've been aware of it. I remember 15, 20 years ago. No, 20 years ago. No. 20 years, yeah. My anniversary comes up 18 years. Been with Annie for 18 years. 20 years ago, I was dating a girl. I was teaching kids musical. She was a music teacher. She wasn't a public school teacher. She was a private tutor. When I went to pick her up for dinner, and the child was in the room with her learning the musical instrument, and the child had left their books on the little bench that was outside the music room. I sat and I waved. She goes, "Sit down. I'm almost done." Okay. I picked up the book and I looked inside it. I was horrified at what I saw. Graphic content, misinformation on history, mathematical methods which were backward, confusing. And I said, is that what they're teaching our kids? And it made me begin to wonder, what else are they doing? Now you know, now that you've seen what's going on. It has gone further and further beyond, now to the point where they're actually teaching pornographic content. In some people's minds, perverted pornographic content to children. I remember when they had health class in my high school, and they talked about how to put on a condom and stuff. That was controversial in my day. It was called health. We all sat and giggled because we're all a bunch of 12th graders. You know how that goes. But now it's gotten to the point where they're teaching direct sexual positions of homosexual behavior to grade school children. And they're providing textbooks so the child takes it home, thinks that it's okay because it's taught in a classroom. The parent has a right to say, no, I don't want that taught to my kid. That's what's going on. That's not banning a book. Having a parent having direct input in what the classroom is teaching their child is America. It is individual rights. Your child's mind is not subject for government control. You, as the parent, have a right to determine your children's content. And that's what's going on. And I remember for years teachers' unions saying, well, the problem with education is not us teachers. It's not us lousy people doing a terrible job. It's because you parents won't get involved. You won't show up to PTA meetings. You won't show up to school board meetings. And we need to have more input. And you need to teach their kids to do their homework and stuff. Okay. So we finally got involved and we were horrified at what was going on. So naturally, we have every right to be upset. Nobody's banning a book. They're saying it's not appropriate material for a classroom. That's entirely different. And it isn't. And I would argue even books like To Kill a Mockingbird, it's inappropriate for grade school students. It's too complex a subject. Trying to explain the machinations of racism and systemic prejudices in a child's mind is almost impossible. They will get the wrong message every time. They've done experiments too. They would take kids out of the classroom and say, all the blue-eyed kids will get an A today, and all the brown-eyed kids won't. Sort of an affirmative action for eye color. They did this experiment, which it's a political psychology experiment, so I'm very familiar with it. And even though the next day they said all the brown-eyed kids today will get an A, all the blue-eyed kids, they didn't see it as that. The message they got was hate on the other group. And the kids began fighting with each other, sometimes physically, even though they had balanced it out, simply because the teacher had identified them as blue or brown-eyed kids, which is interesting when you consider what the Democrats are doing in our society. You black people have been hurt. We're going to give you money. Naturally, it causes friction and causes problems in society, regardless of its legality, regardless of its justice even. We need to move on. Speaking of justice, I'm going to talk a little bit about Trump and the indictment, because this is a seminal, pivotal moment for the United States justice system and in turn the American citizenry. We'll be right back after this brief message.